Hi, Brendan.
Yeah, hello.
It is my pleasure to interview you for my blog. Um, you identify or you describe yourself as First Nation composer from Australia. Can you just explain what does it mean term First Nation composer?
Okay. So the idea behind that, the best way I can describe it is Western notation is a beautiful box with amazing art that has come out of it, amazing music and art that has come out of it. But where I'm actually coming from is to the right of that. It's a circle, it's cyclic, and at the core of that is culture, my culture. And you could say, generally, my music is a cultural representation, is a musical representation of my culture.
Hmm.
That's an idea behind it.
Yes, got it. I got it. And but in your mind, what is good music and what is bad music? What's the difference?
Okay. Um, Good music, like good music is things like to listen to jazz. I come from a jazz background, so that's good music. I listen to most music, except not too much country and not too much punk. But the idea, like good music to me, is Coltrane, is Ellington, is Basie for his swing, is Ellington. I was saying before, Ellington for his chord clusters and use of individual players. Then you had people like Billie Holiday and Lester Young, um, and those kind of and then Miles Davis, because he kept on,
Hmm.
changing himself musically. Sketches, I was saying Sketches of Spain is one of my favourites because you've got combined his unique sensibilities, music sensibilities, and
Hmm.
orchestral, is that the word? And then, Coltrane's just brilliant because Wars of Sound and that type of thing. But with him, it's like, Walls of Sound. But then if you've ever heard him play blues, you can cut it right back and, play the best of them. And then
Got it.
bad music, yeah, bad music is just, I think that's just, kind of like bad playing. But yeah, I don't like saying bad music because I think each music has its own soul, its own
Mhm.
kind of, and you can usually tell by listening to, if it's good or bad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is, let's say, your musical signature or your musical ideas which you more frequently uh, would like trying to develop in your compositions?
Okay, just say that again. Sorry, I wasn't
Um,
sure of the question.
what is your musical signature or ideas which you more frequently trying to develop or playing around in your compositions?
Okay, I like the idea of, I write for everything from, a large orchestra to smaller ensembles. I've done the jazz thing, I've done the rock reggae thing, and even if it's for a string quartet, um, there has to be some sort of, it could be flowing along lovely, but there has to be a point of um, tension in there because, we can all listen to lovely music and that, but that's not my, there has to be some sort of tension in the piece because otherwise, it can all sound a bit, um, not the same, but, we don't, that's just, when I'm writing, I always try
Yes.
and find a point of, oh, you can go, listener will be going, oh, lovely, lovely. Oh, that's the point of tension. Yeah, so when I'm writing, um, and that can take different forms, whether it's structure or whether it's time signature, whether it's I like dissonance. So because I come from jazz background, major, minor, with an augmented fifth, and it might have a 9 in the melody. So that can take different forms, I say, rhythmically, melodically, or chordal. I like just getting on the piano and banging out chords. And, half of it will be a quarter of it will be useful, and the other 3/4 is, kind of leave it type thing. Yeah, so that's what I kind of look for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you just give example and explain one composition of yours where you, let's say, more developing this First Nation?
Yeah. Okay. I was using this example, Barju, which means footprints, the Durga language of my mob. And the idea behind that piece, I was a residency with Ensemble Offspring, who are an ensemble here in Australia, New Music Ensemble. And I wrote, as part of my residency, I wrote something for them. And the idea behind that was Barju, its footprints, and the idea was, as a whole, as a human race, we actually need to tread lightly on Mother Earth and take care of her. And that can take forms of, living in the city and putting your recyclable bin out, through to our rangers who live on country and take care of country. They know, where the fresh water sources are, when the mullet are coming in, when certain, plants show you what the seasons are coming, that type of thing, that deep level knowledge, first Aboriginal knowledge of country, and that ties with that idea of Barju, footprints. Yeah, so that was the idea behind it, and that's kind of an example of what I'm doing in my compositions.
Yes, got it. So let's say your musical identity are merging between are some kind of mix or using languages from Western, right? Academic music, jazz, and concepts and culture of First Nation, right?
Yes, yeah, and I like the idea of including language in there, because I think I've said before, I'm trying to finish off this masters, this studying, and it's looking at, kind of like what I'm calling a Yuin woman's culture. How's it represented in art music / contemporary classical music, and those type of things are represented in what I'm writing.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, and maybe can you just give some kind of because one thing is right when we talk about this First Nation culture, but second is maybe there is some kind of musical language or uniqueness, how you are using that, or
Yeah, well, I think kind of like the whole thing is we have a different. It's a point of difference. It's just like, different people have different cultures, different worldviews,
yes,
and I think that's bringing that into into what we're calling Western notation. Um, excuse me. And there's just different ways of kind of writing that. Can you ask the question again? Sorry.
yes. So can you just one thing is right when it's culturally different, right? First Nation from maybe from those who came later, right? Mostly from Europe. It's culturally and languagely different, but how is their music perception, or maybe there are completely different musical concepts as well in those cultures.
I think so, and the thing is, I only talk about my culture because you can't generalize. We're all different groups, different tribes, different clans. We all have points of different, but I think it's like you have to know the Western. You have to know keys, time signatures, key signatures, all that stuff. You have to know the basics of Western notation, and then it's bringing in, melding different ideas and that. So I find I'm working on a piece with the Australian Art Orchestra about whales and their migration and creation stories from my country. And I find it easy to work with improvisers because they're very open to different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go to a club, you hear a band over 2 nights, 3 nights, each night the improvisation will be different. And it's that, minute detail, it could be a given phrase, it could be where they start the phrase, the pitch, all that, the tonalities, the devil's in the details, that stuff. And I think kind of it's a sense of freedom, and that's what I try and include in my, even if it's for a string quartet, I might, just write a dissonant kind of scratchy, what I call dissonant scratchy passage. And I like because it's coming from a jazz background, I like the idea of freedom within the structure,
Mm-hmm.
and the structure is Western notation. And, you can achieve that through, not playing, if it's written on, the start of the phrase is written on the second beat, within the space of a beat, it could be the beginning of the beat, the middle of the beat, classical, or the second half of the beat. And it's in those, minute how players interpret, that's where the magic comes in. Because like I'm writing it, but the actual, delivery and the actual interpretation of the music is where it can be really interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of like collaborative processes, which what's that, blackfellas, which I do a lot of, collaboration with
Mm-hmm.
different types of group and different genres, types of music, and I always like that idea of freedom within structure.
Mm-hmm. Got
Because,
it.
yeah, notation, Western notation is structural. That idea, yeah.
Got it. Got it. And what is the process, right, of for you to composing? How you start and what kind of stages you're usually going through?
Okay. Um, I like to sit at the piano and just muck around with ideas. So it might be, kind of like, I'm just trying to think of a piece. When I was writing some music for this ABC thing, I'm just trying to think of a particular piece. But long short, I can sit at the piano. I'm a horn player, saxophone player by, training. And then I taught myself piano, jazz standards, because you can only play one note on a horn and you actually have to know what you're improvising over, i.e. chordally.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught myself kind of, the basics of jazz playing, play the melody in the right hand and the chord structures in the left hand. And that idea, kind of like I can sit on the piano, try a couple of chords out, or a melody just might, happen first, or I might just get a chord, a chord progression, and then later the melody will come. But the general idea is I sit on that piano, and and the thing is, like, I might do, a 20-minute record, a 20-minute session, and half of it will be crap, but the other half there might be some, interesting parts that I can use. And that's just the starting of the process. And as we all know, it's kind of version upon version. And it just depends on the piece, what comes first. The melody or given chord structure. Or you might be, listening writing something for a particular instrument or person, stylistic and that. And that might, you know, kind of like a melody might come in, might happen, and I think, okay, I could, you know, take that up a fourth or whatever for that instrument, and that would be the start of it. Yeah, so that's kind of like my process. And the thing is, I was saying I could be sitting at the bus, and you know something will hit, so I just have my phone and record it. I look like a dodo bird, but that's cool, you know, because you know you never know when it's going to strike as well. Yeah.
Got it. So you are like very open, right? As the music, the music is coming and you find something interesting and then you developing it, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, because it's kind of like sometimes you just, you know, it just kind of happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen. You sit there and do 20 minutes, you think, shit, why did I do that?
Yeah.
But, you know, kind of like that's how I kind of process it.
Yes, got it. And how your music changed during the last 10 years?
Oh, in the last how many years?
Yes, in the last 10 years, yes.
Oh, well, okay. So I started doing the jazz things, you know, kind of quartets, quintets and all that, and big bands. Then I was with a reggae/rock band who toured all around Australia and around the world, kind of, you know, playing horn, reggae. And, you know, kind of like when you're playing horn, you don't have an amplifier, so you have to have chops, and you have to be able to cut through the guitar heroes in the band. And then from that, that's the other thing. I was part of this course called Narrabri, which just received Narrabri First Nations Peoples Composers Program run through the Australian National University. It won some prize over in Europe somewhere just recently. And that's how I got into composition, because I had never thought of myself as a composer beforehand. I was quite comfortable playing horn, you know, kind of like in small groups or in front of, you know, in big festivals and all that. But I really hadn't thought of myself as a composer until I started that course. And then it's just kind of gone from there. And I've been very lucky in the opportunities I've had writing for orchestras through to smaller ensembles, and just recently kind of wrote a piece for a solo for double bass, and that it's all a learning experience for me, because, you know, kind of like to have that time, I call it luxury, to have that time to sit down with a bass player and, you know, just actually get an in-depth understanding of the ranges and the possibilities of a given instrument. And, you know, this player was very he's a classical dude, but he's very open to trying different things out on the instrument. And so yeah, that's how it's changed, because it's kind of gone from, you know, kind of jazz to reggae to composing everything from orchestras through to, you know, a solo bass piece and everything in between. Yeah, so that's kind of like the journey. Yeah.
Yes, got it. But as I understand now, you're writing pieces for new music ensembles, right?
Yeah.
And how what was the trigger? How you from let's say from jazz and reggae, how you discover yourself that you could be like new music composer?
I think it was kind of like, it really was doing that course, and then because you know, kind of like musos are, it's a different ball game, completely different ball game, writing. And because I had the basics of what I'm calling Western notation, but, you know, kind of trying to write for a bloody orchestra, the size, you know, kind of the depth and all that, that was a whole kind of, you know, a whole big learning experience. And other things like, you know, writing for choral singers, that's a different experience, because each type of music and each musician, you know, kind of has their own kind of language. and I had to kind of get on that, get across that because it's really broad, and so depending on what the commission was, what the piece was, and I've just been, I had to kind of, a fast learner, but I've been very fortunate in that I've had people who have shared their understanding and their knowledge of their specific genre, music, instrument type thing. So,
Got it.
because that's what I mean. It's a learning journey because kind of like I'm learning as I go with each piece I'm writing.
Do you use
Yeah.
some technologies as well, some softwares or some?
I've just got Sibelius at the moment. Sibelius and I have a love-hate relationship. It just depends on the day. Um, what I'm looking at as well now is because technologies, programs, different ways of actually. Because I use this analogy. Okay, so what is it? Okay, so I was with some small ensemble. I think there's about 8 to 10 players, and I had the written piece of manuscript there. And I said, okay, what you're seeing, here's the manuscript. But what I see could be a painting. And that's what I mean, like that culture. It's an actual representation of my culture in music form. And that's kind of like that idea is there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just repeat the question for me. Sorry, because I go off on tangents.
Yes, it's about your relationship with technology when you're composing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have a good relationship with technology. So the long and short, I do what I have to do to get it, to get the piece there. But luckily, I use my ear a lot. And luckily, Sibelius plays it back for me, and I can get, an idea of what it sounds like because, does that make sense? So technologies, I'm learning to think of music in a different way, re-technology. I wasn't mad on it before.
Yes,
I
got it.
didn't understand it, and I still don't understand it fully because it keeps on changing. But I was saying to a friend, my thinking behind it is changing, re-technology, because with the Aboriginal community, we have a young community, a youth community, a lot of young people, and that's the technology that they're using, you know.
Yes,
And so, in the game, what is it? The game sphere, game music, that game music,
yes,
that's kind of showing up as well, kind of like, so re-technology, I'm getting kind of better acquainted with it. Yeah.
yes. So
I'm
you
not
are you.
mad, but I use it. Yeah.
So you are using
Yeah.
as a composer. You are using Sibelius, right? Sibelius only, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you
And
write some?
sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't.
Yes, got it, got it. But you are writing completely instrumental music, right? You are not writing electronical music.
No, not but because my how as composers we have strengths. My strength is and I just haven't found the what is it? The match.
Yes,
So my strength is getting on that piano. So I've got to find a MIDI that will work with my thing, so I can just into that and via the MIDI, and that will be an easier process for me. Um, yeah, because I think that will enable me to flow.
yes,
My ideas kind of flow more. Yeah, so that's kind of like something I'm working on. Yeah.
yes. Got it, got it, got it. The moment of the flow, right?
Yes.
Yes. And can you tell me a little bit about this the course, right? Which change a lot, right? Or impacted a lot. You who
Okay, so
organized and who
yeah,
organized?
okay,
How
so
long?
it's Okay. It was just a short course. It was organised by a bloke called Professor Chris Sainsbury, who's a Durham man who teaches composition at Australian National University. And I was one of the first people who went through it. And I think it was that we had a group of black fellas in the room, a group of Aboriginal composers from all different musical backgrounds.
Yes.
From all different levels. We had a rapper, we had a classically trained church organist, we had myself, we had a guy who just has a reggae band, and we had another bloke who kind of played bass. And so it was a real mix of people there. But coming out of that course, the short course through Australian National University, it gave me kind of like the idea I could do composition, and then about a year after that, I applied for the Masters in Composition at Sydney University, Sydney Conservatorium, and that's what I'm trying to finish now. But yeah, so that was kind of like the idea, the impetus to get me think, because prior to that, I hadn't thought I was a composer or could be a composer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, got it. And what do you think, right? You're like First Nation, being as a first representative of First Nation, right? What do you think? What's this culture, or what you can bring to the world, right? What could be your, let's say, special value? What you can bring to the?
Well, I think for me, it's about storytelling, and kind of like actually going to the opera and seeing, an Aboriginal story represented that in genre of, opera. There was some language in there, kind of, opera is very Western, Western
Yes.
History.
Yes.
And, kind of like, we've got people like Professor Deborah Chittenham, who is a soprano singer and teaches music and has got 20 years experience in opera. So I think it's kind of like that. It's a point of difference and different stories. We all people, all cultures have their stories. And I think for us, when we're saying First Nations, to actually be able to tell our stories through music in the different genres, And I think like something like in the classical, contemporary classical art music, we have popular people, we have country and western, but those and jazz, there's not a lot of representation in those genres.
Mm-hmm.
So I think kind of like, and it is really just, an opportunity for us to tell our stories. And I like that idea, because I think that's what we do as composers generally, is telling a story through music, whoever you are.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just like that idea.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. So it's so it allows, let's say, it allows other cultures, right, to listen or to hear your stories through means of, or through new music or contemporary music language, right?
Yeah. And I think kind of like we're all storytellers, especially in the arts, whether it's music, any specific genre, whether it's art, whether it's visual arts, dancing, etc. We're all telling stories of different types.
Got it. And what do you fear as a composer the most?
What do I what?
Yeah. What do you fear?
Oh,
as composer.
That's a good question. I think kind of like, how the thing is like, composing is a very internal kind of thing. And then my fear would be the piece going live and people just don't get it. Kind of like, I think people are just, I can't say that, I can't swear. People don't understand it or don't enjoy it. It doesn't have to be enjoyed. I don't care if you kind of like, but the thing is like, for me, part of it is when I was saying that stories, it's part of it being heard. Like
Yes.
with us, with Aboriginal people, blackfellas, you know, our language. How many stages do you hear Aboriginal languages spoken? So my fear would be, you know, kind of people just think, oh, what the fuck was that? Or, you know, kind of like they don't have everybody take that's the thing I get, like every person takes away something different from a concert, from a performance. And I'd I don't know that it's like, no, I'm not I don't care, not I don't care. But my fear would be they don't get it. And it doesn't have, when I say they do not understand it, what I mean by that, you know, kind of like generally, you know, as long as they um, take something away from it. But yeah,
Mm.
somebody who goes there and thinks, oh, what's that? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand it on any level.
Got
Does
it.
that make sense? Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes,
that's
yes.
that type of idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And why do you compose, right?
Hey?
Why do you compose?
Why do I compose? Because I like it and I like telling stories. And I think we're, you know, kind of like telling stories through the medium of music. And I think it just kind of like it's music's an amazing thing, you know, kind of like, and it's a voice kind of but because I like it as well, you know, kind of like
Yes.
the thing is, you know, you sit in the room and you by yourself and you write the thing, and then, you know, kind of actually hearing it live is a completely different, a great, you know, really nice moment because it's in your head, and then it's the musician's interpretation of it live is lovely because, you know, then you get to hear kind of like what's been living in your set in your head because Sibelius is not the same as a live ensemble playing it. So yeah, that's what I like about it, and it's freedom, you know, kind of like that idea of, you know, kind of like because it's freedom because like with the reggae band I used to play with, you know, going back, we were kind of a full-on political rock band, rock reggae band, you know, we have survived black politics. And then in this, you know, what I'm calling at the moment composer, for lack of a better word, I like the sense of freedom within music, you know, and the opportunities because it's open to interpretation. And I like that, you know, my interpretation will be different to your interpretation as a composer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that sense, you know, kind of like it's artistic freedom within that space.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And how, let's say, how new music scene in Australia changed this century? What was our biggest changes which you observe? Or
I think it's diversity. Like you've got, you know, kind of you've got blackfellas, what is it, First Nation people, but you've got all different sorts of voices being, you know, different, when I say voices, different members of society, you know, because diversity, yeah, because there's some really interesting stuff there. And it's not only kind of like it's the composers, but it's what they're actually doing, you know, kind of like some really interesting new music happening in Australia. And there's kind of like a wave of new composers kind of coming through and just really interesting music. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about you said diversity one, right? So it increases the diversity from people with different like ethnic backgrounds, educational backgrounds, or musical backgrounds, where coming from jazz and etc. Like your example as well. They're coming to the scene and makes more diverse and etc.
It makes it
And
more interesting.
yes, yeah. And what about technologies or multimedia music? Are some trends when more and more composers are using technologies, videos, and etc. in Australia?
Yeah. Yes. And that's kind of like, no, I'm just trying to think. Okay, so there's a piece, that piece I wrote for solo bass was part of a concert called Bandian Way, and they use technology with, what do you call it? Visual representations of the country. You know, one from Mount Kosciuszko down through to the coast.
So you
And
mean visual what? So it's images, right?
yeah,
Or
so you've got the music going there. There's different composers. My piece was a, you know, what do you call it? A solo bass piece. There was a violin. There was an ensemble there with different composers' piece responding to the visuals that were there, which were a visual representation of each part of the country. So one was, you know, desert. One was the Mount Kosciuszko with the ice and the snow. One was the coastal
yes,
coast with water and all that type of thing. So it was a blend of that live music, visuals, and then there was some technology with the sound as well. And then it was
yes,
all recorded and it's coming out as a production, you know, kind of online
yes,
eventually. Is that
got
what
it.
you mean?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, so it's a combination of, you know, live visuals and then, you know, I don't know, synthesizer or whatever
Mhm.
in there with the musicians.
Yes, got it.
So yeah, it was a combination of.
And who organized the project? It was because as I
Part
mentioned,
of the, what was it? It was Canberra International Music Festival. It was part of their festival.
yes, got it. And then there was various composers, right? And then was
Yes.
the people who mixed them together and make one production video. Or
Yes.
yeah, got it.
Yeah. So it was a whole kind of, you know, it was a piece for the festival.
And what's happening with audience of new music audience? How they changed during this century?
Oh. Um, I'm not. Yeah, I think it's just a. I say diverse, but you know, kind of like in the past, you've had, you know, with classical, it's always been, you know, kind of an older, but you know, a set people who, you know, like to go to the opera or whatever. But I think it's kind of changing with the audience as well. You know, you're getting younger people, you're getting a mixture of different ages, backgrounds, you know, kind of so I think that's playing out in, you know, kind of audience and then appreciation of it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And what do you think? What are the main trends, or where this new music scene is going in Australia? Right?
Um, I think you've said a kind of technology is a big part of it because like and just experimental. I went to a performance where they just had drums and then using loops and your traditional drums, and then a double upright bass player who did that and did really weird things, microphones and all that, and then a piano player who was playing a moog, I think, don't know the name of it, and then he was singing, and then he did waving pictures, and so it's melding, just different approaches to and using different combinations of musicians and instruments. I think barriers are being broken down, you know, spoken word, text, instrumentation, and structures.
Hmm.
Use of, yes. I think kind of like there's some really interesting stuff happening. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And are more and more First Nation composers? Are this group of First Nation composers increasing, or?
There are, but we're a small group. Oh, we're a small group, and but the thing is, there's more. You know, it's a steady flow, but you know, kind of like and that's where that technology, you know, kind of like not a lot of us have, not a lot of well, I want to say First Nations Aboriginal people have had the privilege of access and equity to you know, and music education within a Western construct, you
Yes.
know, practicing, you know, the piano, the violin, practicing the chords, practicing the scales, all that sort of stuff. The actual, I call them old school musicians because that's how I was, you know, learned. You had to know those scales, know the chords, know the melodies, know the key signatures, know the time, all that stuff. We just haven't had, as a peoples, we have not had access to those rarefied kind of areas. I've lost the words now, but we haven't had access to it. That's why you don't have a lot of Aboriginal composers. But that's why it's very important that, you know, you can. I say this: you have to be able to see it to be it. So if there's a young person who can actually see a black fella composer, or you know, playing violin in an orchestra, that might put a seed in their head. Oh,
Yes.
I'm interested in that. But if they can't see it, then they can't be it. So I get into all that in my thing, in my studies. But that idea, there's not a lot of us who have had access to that. So I see it as access and equity, and that's why you don't have. But there's a number of, you know, kind of factors that are part of that as well.
Yes, got it. It's interesting story. And what is, to your understanding, what is the role of new music in Australian society?
I think it's multiple, but the thing is, like, I think it's just when we say different, when I was talking about kind of different ideas, where I did a project where was it last year or the year before? We got the project was there was a chamber ensemble, and we got text from the Australian government policies. You know, a policy that says you can go here, you can't go there because you're an Aboriginal person.
Yes.
And then we set music to that. And those type of things whereby you have that represented in a musical form are ways of informing people, because I don't think, you know, everybody knew those stories. So it's kind of like it's music. It's good, if you're saying there's good and bad music. And the other thing is, you know, kind of I think it's breaking down barriers as well, especially when you ask that question about what was the question? I'm going off in thought. When you asked about, you know, kind of technologies and that, and the mix where people, you know, are using spoken word, you know, poems, all that type of thing, where they're using those different forms to, you know, with music, and therefore gives it a voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would be your last question? What would be your suggestion?
Yeah.
What would be your
and
suggestion?
What
would be your suggestion to young composers?
Oh, just give it a go. You know, kind of like I've, you know, even 6 years ago, I wouldn't have thought of myself as a composer. You know, but I've had amazing opportunities, and just take whatever opportunities you're given, because you never know where it's going to end up. You know, A, give it a go, and B, just take every opportunity that's presented to you, because you know you just never know what will happen. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Brenda, for this interview.
No worries. Thank you. Okay.